What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Untamed Outdoorsmen. And today we are back with the first episode in the Native Watercraft Hammer 12.10 build series as a favor to our friend Carl, who is the owner of this hammer. So today we are back installing some bow keel guards to the Native Watercraft hammer. So the keel guards that we have here are going to be made of Kydex. We have these two Kydex sheets here. They came in a pack of two, so these are the thicker versions of the Kydex sheets. So they're pretty thick. But today we're going to be installing these on the bow of the kayak. So this is definitely an install that gains a lot of traction, and there's a lot of interest in something like this for sure. You go on any forum for any kayak, there's always questions being asked about keel guards. Almost like once a week in every single kayak group, there's always a keel guard question. There's a lot of interest in keel guards, and for very good reason. Keel guards are probably the #1 defense against kayak damage on the bottom of your kayak. It is probably hands down the #1 defense against things like that long term. Whenever you see the keels of kayaks that are completely chewed up, it's almost always because they don't have a keel guard. Typically, the go-to company for keel guards is Burley Pro, and they make some really good products, very similar to these Kydex sheets, and I think they are made of Kydex. However, Burley Pro, they make really good products, but they are always pretty late to the game when it comes to keel guards. For example, they just, within the last couple weeks of me recording this video, they just released keel guards for the Bonafide PWR and the XTR. Those kayaks are like at least a year or two old now, so they're definitely a little bit behind when it comes to making keel guards. So we're going to be making one on the hammer today. This is a brand new kayak on the market, so it should be a really good one. We are probably going to be following the video from Wendell Fishing. That's a really good video on custom Kydex keel guards. I think he does some really good stuff over there. But I am probably going to be following that video pretty closely because it's a really similar keel style to this native hammer. It's a very sharp keel on this kayak, so this is going to be a really good video. Okay, so we got all the stuff that I think we're going to need here. I don't think we need much more than this, but I'll leave some text down below with anything I missed. So we're going to need a couple things, nothing too nuts. So we're obviously going to need a heat gun. I only recommend a corded heat gun for anything to do with a kayak, really. A corded heat gun is always the way to go. It's one of the most aggressive forms of heat while still being mostly safe on a kayak. It's really hard to mess up something with a corded heat gun. Blowtorch or anything with a flame, you're much more likely to damage kayaks doing that. So I only recommend a corded heat gun. We're going to need a piece of paper. And funny enough, this is the one that came from the Kydex purchase. So this is a piece of paper. We're going to use this to draw out a keel guard that we're going to cut, and then we're going to copy onto our keel guard sheet. So that'll be nice. We got some glue here. This is some marine rated adhesive. This is the Amazing Goop marine rated adhesive here. This stuff is awesome. One of my favorite things on the market, hands down, in terms of like adhesives on boats or kayaks in general. This isn't quite a silicone. I know I've treated it like a silicone in years prior, but this is much more of a glue. But yeah, this thing has worked really good for us over the years on kayaks, so we're going to continue using it. But this stuff like welds on. It's no joke, so that'll be cool. We have a Sharpie because we're going to trace our stuff on the paper and on the Kydex sheet. We have scissors, obviously, for cutting the piece of paper. We obviously have our Kydex sheets. And we have a jigsaw. This is just a cheap one that I have here that I've had for a couple years. This is the Hyper Tough one. I think this is like a Walmart brand. This thing was super, super cheap a couple years ago. I'm sure there's much better ones on the market. In a pinch, we needed one badly, and a Walmart was close, I think was the circumstance there. But yeah, some form of jigsaw or some way to cut the Kydex sheets in an efficient manner. However you want to do that, just make sure it's with a tool that you know how to use safely. That's probably the biggest thing. But yeah, so I think we got everything that we're going to need, but now we actually have to flip the kayak over with the keel facing towards the sky. We have to flip it upside down because trying to do this with the keel facing the ground is going to be very difficult. So definitely not a bad idea. Yeah, I'm going to go get a helper because there's no way I could do that solo, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we got the native hammer flipped over now. Feels even larger when it's flipped over, but I have our piece of paper here, and I am going to create sort of a rough mock-up of how my keel guard will look. Obviously, you want to put some curves in it and some bends in it, just so it's easier to mold it into the keel. So I folded the piece of paper in half horizontally, so I'm just going to create a little rough design here. Okay, so that'll work. I put plenty of little bends in it so it's easier to mold down on the sides because this is a very sharp keel. So I put a little bit extra curves in it. So what I'm going to do is cut this with the fold in the paper. That way it goes on both sides of the paper. So what I'm going to do. Okay, so here we go. Unfold it. And this is going to be a rough idea of the keel guard. So it's going to kind of go up to around right here and stop right there. So this is actually very, very good. I'm very happy with that. It actually lines up perfectly because you don't want to put it too far because the underside of the kayak here kind of splits off. So this will work very well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of our Kydex sheets. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace out our keel guard onto this Kydex sheet. So I have a marker here. I'm just going to trace this right out. Okay, so we got our keel guard stenciled out there. So now we're going to move on to cutting this out. So now I got this jigsaw here. Obviously, when dealing with any sort of power tools like this, be careful. If you don't feel comfortable using it, don't use it. So I'm going to use this jigsaw to cut out the Kydex. One thing is, you want to be careful. You don't want to bend it too sharply while it's hard like this. Once we heat it up, it'll be a lot easier to mold it, but we don't want to crack this or anything, and the jigsaw can be a little aggressive. So just be careful, and obviously don't go into the surface you're using. And if it's a corded jigsaw, wait until it stops spitting because it's got a little bit extra juice in it even after you let off the trigger. So if you remove it while it's still slowing down, it'll jolt up and hit you in the face. So be careful. But I'm going to take this jigsaw and I'm going to carefully cut out our keel guard. Okay, so I got this close. I have to do a little bit more trimming, but it's tough to make some of those angles with a jigsaw. So now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, and then I'll hit it with some sandpaper to round off some of the edges, and then we'll be pretty much ready to get started with molding it. All right, so I just got a little bit of sandpaper here. I'm just going to use this to round off the edges. This is 50 grit. All right, we're looking pretty good. So now I'm just going to hit this with sandpaper across the whole thing. Because you don't want a flat surface for applying adhesives or anything. You want a scuffed up surface. It just helps it adhere better. I think we are pretty much ready to start getting this thing molded on. Okay, so you probably can't see my face, which is fine. So what we're gonna do is I am going to start from the front of the keel guard and work backward until we reach this tape here. This tape is just holding in the backside of it. So I am going to apply light heat. You wanna be careful, obviously you don't wanna just sit there with the heat gun right on the kayak. You wanna take your time with this, do it section by section and really warm it up. So I got our heat gun here and I'm just gonna start molding it. Okay, so I got it super flappy now, so I'm just going to, you want to definitely be wearing gloves for this. You just want to mold it into the spot. I'm just going to hold it there. Definitely be wearing some thick gloves for this. Now I'm going to try to work in the sides. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it in this position for a little while until it cools a little bit, and it can hold that position. Because if I were to remove this, it'll start to bow back up. We obviously don't want that. And if you mess up, you can just heat it back up again and fix it. Not a huge deal. Okay, that's actually really good. Okay. So again, if it's in a position that you don't love, you can just heat it back up and it'll bow back out. So unfortunately, it's just a lot of patience and working it into the plastic over time, because you heat it up, it gets soft, then you hold your hand on it until it cools a little bit, and then it hardens up. That's what you're looking for, but we're close. I can feel that we're close. Okay. I think we are just about ready. I think this is as close as we're reasonably going to get it. All right, I'm going to give this a minute or two, let this cool down all the way, so we can start applying our amazing goop. This is how we're looking. So I think I need to mess with that corner right there a little bit more. I'll work that in. But overall, really not bad here. We're getting very, very close, but I'm going to mess with a couple of these corners real quick, and then we'll be good to start laying our adhesive. Okay, so this is how our keel guard looks. Actually looks really good. I think it came out pretty excellent. I will admit, I'm super happy with that. And mind you guys, this is my first time ever making a keel guard for a kayak. And now, I mean, I thought this is like a solid A. Like, I think in terms of a letter grade, this is an A, or like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Like, I am definitely pretty thrilled with how this looks. Let's give it a try again. I mean, come on, you can't beat that. Sits nice and flush. Oh my goodness, this looks awesome. Okay. That's incredible. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay. We are going to move on to actually gluing it to the hull. So yeah, let's begin. Okay, so we have the amazing Goop silicone here. I've used this stuff multiple times across the years and on this YouTube channel, so I know how this stuff works very well. So this stuff, it goes on very thick and it hardens, but you got to give it, I say, a minimum of 72 hours to let this thing really cure, to the point where it's incredibly strong. But this stuff is really nice. It won't yellow or anything if you get the marine version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bead around the entire keel guard, and then I'll put a little bit in the middle, and then I'll put it on, and then I'll tape it around the kayak for a while, and then I'll let it sit for 2 to 3 days minimum. And then we'll come back and do an outro. So yeah, let's get after this. So what I'm doing is I'm applying a bead around the inside of the keel guard, but I'm leaving a lip of Kydex. So it's not just, the glue is not just resting on the top of the Kydex. I'm just giving it a little bit of wiggle room because it's going to want to expand. You're not going to get it 100% perfect, but just try your best. Just like that. Now, there's very little showing. There's a little bit on the side there, but there's very little showing overall. So, yeah. And this stuff is very, very messy. So keep that in mind. But the biggest thing is you want to make sure that this back area is really beefed up with goop. Okay. So now, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a trick here. Wet your fingers, and you can actually pick all this stuff up without it sticking to your finger. So you have a little bit of spit. I'm just going to glide my finger, and it will not stick to you. See? So then you can just wipe it off. Nothing stuck. So it's a good little trick. So that looks really good. So after the 48 to 72 hours are complete, you can kind of get in here and clean it up a little bit better. But as of right now, this is going to work just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some tape and I'm going to wrap this in tape around the kayak just so it holds in place. And then we'll be good to go. Okay guys, so I have this wrapped in tape right now. It's just going to hold its position so the glue can take it all the time it needs to set in. Like I said, I'm going to give this 48 to 72 hours. I'm going to really let this sit here. I think that this keel guard came out really, really good. Like I said, this was my first time doing a keel guard, and I don't think I could have done it any better, in my honest opinion. So I'll put a few more pieces of tape on it, but we'll catch up with you guys in 48 to 72 hours here. So it'll be a few seconds for you. It'll be a few days for me. We'll see you guys then. Okay, everybody. So it is about 48 hours later, give or take, and I am going to remove this now. It's at the point where in this setting, it's going to finish whatever curing it needs to do just from being in this room. So I'm not concerned about it being taped down for another 24 hours. It's going to hold this position perfectly fine to finish up the curing. So I'm going to start to remove the tape. Now, I expect when I remove this tape that we are going to have some residue to clean up because of it getting squished out. So I fully expect to have to take a blunt object, a soft blunt object, and slowly scrape away the residual goop. Yeah, looking like that's going to be the case. So that's fine. We'll just be patient with it. I would honestly say that this came out damn near excellent. All right, so yeah, we definitely have some cleanup to do. Not the end of the world, so we'll take care of that. I might do a time lapse of that. I don't think you guys need to see me chipping away at glue for, you know, a half an hour. So I'm gonna chip away at this, try to clean it up as best as I possibly can, and then I'll get back to you. Okay guys, so this is the finished product here. I'll give you guys a close look at it. So as you can see, I think this came out really good considering it's my first time ever doing a keel guard. I would say the hardest parts were trying to get the curves here, get you a slightly better light, the curves here down properly because of the bends that they make when you try to go down. I found that to be a little bit tough. It was probably like 45 minutes of just molding this keel guard into the kayak. But considering it's my first time, I think this came out extremely good. And I'm very happy with this. It goes plenty far back because if you go any further, it'd be really hard to mold these pieces in. So I think for what we got going on here, this will do really good. I added extra to the backside here so the glue has plenty to mount to. And then obviously I went up a decent ways, not all the way up, but I went up a decent ways. So I think whatever contact that the keel will face, it's going to hit this keel guard. And then I found that, especially with my personal kayak, I found that the areas on the sides don't need as much protection, but there is a little bit there. So in case there's a weird bump or a weird scuff or something, he'll be good to go. But yeah, so this is the completed product. I would say this came out really good. You're not going to get every ounce of the adhesive off. It's going to be really hard to do that at least. So we got what we could, and I think this looks really, really good. So I'm definitely happy with this. All right, everybody. So that is going to do it for today's video for episode 1 in our Native Watercraft hammer build series, installing that keel guard on the bow. In my opinion, I think it turned out excellent considering it was my first time ever doing a keel guard. I think that came out really, really good, and I'm very happy with that. I have no doubt that that will last a very long time. No doubt there, and protect the keel, obviously. So I think that's a big deal. And, you know, I have a gut feeling that this video will probably do one of, if not the best out of all the build series episodes, just because there's a lot of interesting keel guards and not a lot of companies that make them in a timely manner. So there's going to be a lot of interest in this while the kayak's still so new. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. I really hope this video helped you guys. And this was a lot of fun to make. I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm happy with that result. I think that looks really, really good, and I'm really happy with that. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is a fun one to make for sure. Episode 2 in our build series is going to be installing the 8-button yak power system to this kayak, run off of that 12-volt 100 amp hour that we had in the introductory video. But we are going to be installing the 8-button yak power system to lay the foundation for future mods. So that'll be a really fun one. We're going to do some tips and tricks in there as well, so that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and happy with how this video turned out. So thank you guys. We'll see you next time.